Hello everyone, Justin Dawson from the All Things TechIE Podcast. Where has the month of May disappeared to? Between a family holiday and I have been busy. I haven't disappeared. I've been busy recording podcast episodes. So some of these episodes of the All Things TechIE Podcast are going to come nearly back to back. And of course, we have also Infocom coming up in literally 2 weeks' time. I'm not attending Vegas and Infocom this year, but I do have some pre-recordings from different AV companies to talk about what they are unveiling at Infocom. So some stuff embargo that you will see in the next couple of episodes of the All Things TechIE Podcast. I will also have an episode from the Dublin Tech Summit in the RDS. That's coming up shortly as well. But this episode, I'm joined by the one and only Tim Albright from AV Nation. That's coming up in episode 148 of the All Things TechIE Podcast.
Here's the show that loves to talk about gadgets and gizmos, from A-Logic to Yamaha, cameras to control panels. You get what I mean. We love talking all things techie. In fact, that's the name of the show. And here is your host, Justin Dawson.
Yes, across the web at www.allthingstech.ie. You can find me across the socials, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, at Sir Justin Dawson. You can find my official website as well, where I talk all things tech, AV, and some personal things on autism and reflections on that. And you can read all my writings at www.sirjustindawson.com as well. How is everyone doing? Where has the month of May actually disappeared to? I do not know. I was on a family holiday in Disneyland and over in Paris as well. Really looking forward to linking up with some people that work in Disneyland to talk about behind the scenes at Disneyland. Also want to say, when you are finished listening to all these upcoming episodes, which are going to go probably about 3 or 4 episodes before Infocom, if you are attending Infocom in Vegas. If you're not, stay tuned to All Things TechIE Podcast, because we have some great episodes from different companies talking about new products that's going to be unveiled at Infocom in Vegas. I'm not attending because I will be over in Edinburgh as of this show is going to go out this weekend, being recorded on the 29th of May, but this show is going to go out and published before the end of May. And then on the June bank holiday in Ireland, I am flying out to Edinburgh, Scotland for SCOMS for pretty much the week. So it has been quite a busy schedule. I was also at the Dublin Tech Summit and in the RDS, and did a couple of recordings there. Loads of great startups from Irish tech companies as well, and some great talks on AI as well. So do stay tuned. Don't forget, if you are listening to the All Things TechIE Podcast, I always say that if you want to see the visuals of what we're talking about, visit our YouTube channel, which is at Sir Justin Dawson as well, across all the social media channels, and you'll see the playlist of this and over 140 other episodes of the All Things TechIE Podcast are available there, and also all previous episodes of the All Things TechIE Podcast available on our official website, www.allthingstech.ie. Now, I have known this guy for several years. One of the 2, if not 3 people that I really love in the AV industry and consider absolute veterans of the AV industry. He is Tim Albright, and Tim has spent nearly 30 years in media, spanning broadcast, television, radio and podcasting since 2006. Many of you in the tech space may know him as the founder of AV Nation Media, a B2B firm that covers technology behind how organizations actually communicate. But despite his industry success, Tim is here today because he has also failed massively, and even more than once. And out of those collapses, he has written an incredible new book titled Building on Ashes, a practical framework for overcoming failure. Tim describes the book as he wishes someone had handed it to him when he was sitting on the floor of a failed dream. This isn't your typical fluffy motivational speech wrapped up in chapters. It's a rigorous, structured path from total collapse to reconstruction. So in today's episode, we're going to dig deep into the ashes with Tim and explore some truly paradigm-shifting concepts from his book, including the myth of the moonshot, why the classic tech advice of aiming for the moon is actually terrible for you, and how it triggers your brain efficiently mechanisms to actively sabotage your success. So don't aim for the moon. In fact, how many people have actually landed on the moon? I had that conversation with Chuck Espinoza only recently. Post-traumatic growth. Why the goal isn't just bouncing back to your baseline, but also the data from failure to bounce forward and upgrade your operating system. And also the SPA mentorship model, why rebuilding your career requires specific team structure, meaning you need Socrates, a Plato, and Aristotle in your network. And finally, why Tim repeatedly insists that you are not special, and why accepting that hard truth is actually the most encouraging and liberating thing that you will ever hear. So whether you are currently navigating a startup crash, a career pivot, or just want to bulletproof your mindset for the future, you're going to want to take notes in this episode of the All Things TechIE Podcast. And earlier on, I sat down with Tim Albright to discuss his new book. I've had him on a couple of times. He's someone that I really admire in the AV industry, and he probably laughs that off and go, "Who, me?" And
you need more people.
I know. I need more people to aspire to Tim, don't
yes.
I? But like we go back a long time, and in the post-production of this podcast, I hope you're not embarrassed, because I just looked back and went, episode 24 of the All Things TechIE Podcast during COVID.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And first of all, before I even start talking to our listeners and viewers about why we have Tim Albright back on the program, I must compliment Tim that, like, in 6 years, the weight loss that you have done is incredible, man.
It's incredible. Well, thank you, sir.
Yes. Now, also to our listeners and viewers, and answers on a postcard, and we might be able to give a prize of Tim's book away on this. It's Tim's birthday, and if you can guess what age Tim is, and send us in an email, we'll take the first couple of people that get the age right. And if anyone goes far too high, we will ban them from any future AV events with AV Nation and CTI. Tim has the golden key to those events as well, especially at
just keep it under 100. Just be nice. Keep it under 100. I'll be fine.
Well, Tim, so apart from that, we also have shared the stage last year in Orlando, and got inducted into the Higher Ed AV Awards Hall of Fame. And I again, one of these moments that I went like, I'm too young to be inducted into Hall of Fame. Now, I was talking about birthdays. I was like, yes, maybe Tim's a bit older than me, but like, again, like, I feel that you've done a lot more in the industry than I have, Tim. To be on the stage with you was amazing. So from there, right, we've been over last year. Last time we met was IBC, I think, in Amsterdam at the late part of last year, September, October. Yep. How long have you had this in the making that you went, I want to write a book? And not only do I want to write a book, I want to write a book that has no relative relation to the audiovisual industry.
Yeah. So the book has been in my brain for 10, in two ways. So the book has been in my brain for about 10 years. Nice. And the actual practical, I'm going to sit down and write a book, that, and from that point to this week where it's out now, was about 2.5 years. So January of 2024, I sat down and I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this, right? And so that started the process. It took me about a year-ish to finish the first draft, and then I have learned a lot in this process, editing and this, that, and the other. Me taking an edit of it, having an editor help me with the final draft. That entire process is about 2.5 years.
Wow. Well, okay. So the book is called Building on Ashes,
Yep.
and it's going about the whole word of failure. And when as first, like, I know that from being on AV Week with you on AV Nation, you're very introverted. I hope you don't take offense to that and go,
No, I wear with
don't
that.
follow me on social. I don't want to
No,
be followed on social. And then
do not.
I realized that you're writing a book on failure. And I'm like, this is Tim Albright we're talking about. He's been doing AV Nation for the past, how many years? 15 years now?
Almost, yeah, 15 years.
Yeah. And then, like, it came as quite a shock to me as someone that's followed you for many years that you want to write a book on failure. Now, on that, I'm going to pray a bit here and just go,
Yeah.
do you feel like you failed in either your career or life to want to write a book like this?
Oh my gosh. I mean, well, not yes, to answer it directly, but so many times, and there's a number of really, really wise adages that you can fail your way to success. All of us fail, and certainly, and I outline a number of them. But the answer, quite frankly, is yes. I mean, I wouldn't be where I am today had I not failed. Had I not failed, and then learned from those failures. Yeah.
So, with that in mind, like, how did this all come about? You're talking about this as being nearly 10 years in the making of writing this book. Was the one day that you went, okay, I've pulled myself out of a big hole here, and I've had, maybe, like, for me, and we've discussed this off mic as well several times, different places, Amsterdam stuff. Like, we were comparing pens there in Amsterdam, and I know Tim likes his collection of fountain pens. But
I do.
Was it a moment of, like, just journaling where you just went, I could actually write this and maybe people will read it?
There's one overarching thread that I'll give you, and that is this is I have a personality, I guess is the best way to put it, where there's a book called the working the working mindset, I believe is what it's called. And different people have different types of personalities, and they each fit different parts of an organization. I'm the type of person who I love to come up with creative ideas. I love to kick things off. I am not the person to get it over the finish line. And that is important, right? Because
Okay.
a lot of times, if it comes down to me, it's a hard thing for me to get it over the finish line. And I have left so many things throughout, let's call it 30-ish years of my me being employed as an adult, that I finally sat down and I'm like, look, this is something that I'm passionate about. I think that is important. I can speak to, because I've read a lot, I've experienced a lot, I failed a lot, and it's something that I really want to see done. Also knowing this about myself, that I've got a tendency to not finish things.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was really just a kind of, the phrase, at least in the States, come to Jesus moment, right? Where you're like,
Yeah.
okay, you're going to do this, right? And it's going to take some work, but you're going to do it. And it did correlate. I mean, I am 52 today. So,
There's the answer there, listeners. If you have still
yeah.
stayed with us,
Sorry. Yeah.
you're fine.
So it was my 50th year, right? It wasn't quite my birthday yet, but it was the year I turned 50. And I'm like, this is stupid. If I don't do this now, I am never going to do it. One of those things,
Mhm.
right? So I was like, okay, if you're just going to sit your butt down and you're going to do it. And for me, I did a couple of things to help my own personality and my working style. One, I had a goal. I went on Google. I'm like, okay, what is the average business self-help book, right?
Mhm.
Google said 50,000 words. I'm like, okay, groovy. I've got a goal, 50,000 words. And then I had read Stephen King's book on writing. It is a nonfiction. It's Stephen King talking about how he writes.
Yes.
And I reread that.
And I love Stephen King books, by the
I
way. Yes, yes.
love Stephen King, right? Absolutely love him. And so I had already had that connection with enjoying his work. And so that helped. And I actually read that a couple times over the past 2 years. So I sat down and I'm like, part of my winning routine is going to be I'm going to write X number of words. It started out with 100 words. I'm like, okay, I got that down. I'm like, okay, so now let's put it up to 500 words. Okay, so every day I was writing 500 words. And pretty soon you turn around and you've got 50, 60,000 words. Now it wasn't easy, but it was the way, again, my brain works and my process works. But it started with you're going to do this, dude, and you're going to see this over the finish line.
And do you know what, Tim? Like we talked previously in episode 24, if you want to go back and have a look at that, listeners and viewers, we both come from a broadcast background. I
Yeah.
find that if I write things down, I'm writing it for radio. I'm writing it for, like, it's so hard to put it into context. And like, I've been saying the exact same thing since I met Jen, and we're over 12 years married, that I was going to write a book on scouting and my scouting memoirs. And now it's like that whole idea of writing a book has completely changed shape. And I'm like you, Tim, and like that, this is probably the biggest procrastination I've had in my life,
Yeah.
that I am going to write a book eventually. And like some of my old scout friends have passed away since, and I'm like, I need to write this book. You know, one of these days, one of these days. But did you find that hard? Like that with that in mind, like do you feel you write for radio and media rather than like sitting down and going, how can I make this a book and also put a few personal examples into it without going into a biography, for a better word?
I not particularly. I do my writing has evolved. Let's say over the last 15 years since we started Aviation. I used to write very with a larger vocabulary than I do today. And
Hey, ditto. I could throw my hands up on that and go, I can't think of what words I'm trying to say now at the moment. Yeah.
but I did, and that was how a little bit of how I was raised, but also in going through school and doing certain writings, you got rewarded for using
Mhm.
big words. You got rewarded for using more words, and so that is how my writing had evolved. And I over the last 15 years, running a media company, you look and you see the analytics, and you're like, okay, well, this article performed better than this article. What are the differences and what are the similarities? And the ones that did not particularly do well was the ones I was using, as my father would say, $10 words, right?
Right. Right.
So it's not that people are dumb, and it's not that I was trying to dumb it down, but I don't need to use really, really fancy words to get my point across,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I had already evolved into what I would consider a less verbose writing style. So that helped actually in the writing of the book, because I wasn't fighting with what would have been 10 years ago. I would have been fighting with, using words that were unnecessary.
And when it comes to, you mentioned earlier, and I have a list of questions, but
Yeah.
you know, your answers are leading to more semi questions. Like you mentioned there, like, okay, I wrote a couple of different versions of this and got an editor in and to edit it. How hard is it when you have an editor reading over something and going, I'm going to take this and pull it apart and change it? This is your first book. Did you feel a bit deflated when you have an editor going, no, we're not going to publish that?
Um, so no, I did. That wasn't the concern.
Mm.
That the concern, and it has come in waves and it has come in levels. Um, Over the course of the 2.5 years, I gave the rough copies, gave my wife a rough copy, gave some friends that I trust a rough copy, and I got feedback, and I used some of that feedback in the editing process. That's one level of intimacy. What's one level of exposedness, right? And you mentioned that I am an introvert. Absolutely, 100%, and I will never shy away from that. So you've got that level of vulnerability. Then you give it to somebody who doesn't know you at all,
Right.
right?
Yes.
And that's another level of vulnerability. But it was a good work. I was very fortunate that the editor that I found to work with, she was very, very kind, and it was collaborative, and it was back and forth. And so that was that level. And then you release it out into the world. I did not, I don't know why I didn't think of this dude, but I never considered the fact that somebody I didn't know was going to read my book. And I know that sounds
And
stupid.
but it is a terrifying fact.
It is a terrifying.
It is like, even me writing a couple of chapters, I'm going, does anyone even want to read this tripe that
Yeah,
I'm writing
yeah.
on a Word document at the moment? Like
So
it's there's self satisfaction of going, I'm actually telling a story here.
yes, and the I will tell you the thing that kept me going and kept it salved some of that vulnerability wound, right?
Mm.
Is the feedback I was getting, especially from the editor. Again, this is somebody who did not know me, who I hired from a website that specializes in editors, and it was the feedback I was getting from her. And she's like, "This is a really good piece, and this right part really hit home, and this, and it was like, okay, this might actually, connect with somebody, and quite frankly, might actually help somebody." Which, to be honest, that kind of is the whole idea here.
And I say it's hard, Tim, to find the balance of going, do you want to give personal stories away?
You
Or
have to.
you have to? Yeah.
You have to. So I use a lot of research in my books, in my book, because I believe in pointing back to science and go, this is why I do this, and this is why I do that.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, you need to do that because that gives people a foundation. I think it gives them an intellectual foundation for what you're asking them to do. You have to give them personal stories. You have to be vulnerable. You have to show them that, hey, this is what I mean when one of my favorite stories that I talk about is the difference between fault and responsibility.
Yes.
And that is a concept that I got from a guy by the name of Mark Manson. And the story today is funny because it's 35 years ago.
Yes.
At the time, it was not
This is one
story.
of my questions. This is about you crashing your dad's car, is it?
Oh, I didn't crash it. Crashing it was fine. I rolled that sucker.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Give us the background of this. Were you out with some friends and some mates?
Oh yeah. So I was 16 years old. I had my driver's license for 2 months, right? All of 2 months, right?
Right.
And we had one car in our family at the time. It was my dad's brand new Dodge Dakota truck, gorgeous. And my buddy Jimmy and we were running around, and it was a 4x4. And we took it out in kind of the back roads, dirt area around our house, and we popped that sucker into four-wheel drive, and we were spinning, and we were dry, and we were just having a grand old time. And before I knew it, we were up on two wheels, and no sooner than we were on two wheels, we were on the roof, and it had just it hit the roof, and it slid about 100 200 feet. Yeah,
Wow.
blew out the side windows, cracked the windshield, the whole shebang. And that is a story that, my dad will tell now as something funny and something like that. And but
None at the
it is
time.
not at the time. No, absolutely not at the time. No. And not for a long time. I mean, I just from a personal standpoint, I didn't drive for a long time
I
because
can
I was
imagine.
freaked out, right?
Yeah.
Not because I was grounded or anything. I was grounded for a time,
Yes.
but I was freaked to get behind the wheel for a minute.
Yeah. Like with that in mind, like it's like that. Thank God no one was hurt. Thank
Yes.
God everyone was safe. But it's a story to tell of how you can recover from different
Mhm.
points of your life. And okay, so that goes to the whole fault and responsibility.
Yeah.
You take responsibility of it, you own it, and how
Yeah.
are you going to build from it?
Yeah, and the story, the connection there is my dad wasn't at fault there. My dad was at work. He worked second shift. good portion of my life. And he was nowhere around, right? My father was not at fault for this accident in any way, shape, or form. But at that moment, once I rolled that truck, he was 100% responsible for the fallout for it. He had to figure out, he had to deal with insurance. He had to figure out, first of all, how the heck he was going to get that thing back. Like it was back in the middle of nowhere, sitting on its roof, right? So he was responsible for working with the tow truck, and he was responsible for figuring out what vehicle our family was going to have, the next day.
Yes.
And so the reason for that, and that point in the book, is there's a lot of things that happen in our life that we probably don't have any faults, right? It's not our fault. We are still responsible for figuring out how to overcome it and how to get through it,
Or how to deal with it
or how to deal with it.
at that moment in time.
Yeah,
And you could look at the fault and responsibility on two levels: of a 60-year-old son driving his dad's car and flipping it, and
yep,
the dad thinking, like, how am I going to punish my son without going overboard? you know
yeah,
uh,
absolutely.
so you aimed this book, Tim. You say, one of the quotes you say in the bio is, "You wish someone handed you this book on the floor of a failed dream."
Yep.
So, with that in mind, like, do you think that's, again, are you aiming it more as career path and people working in business and working in AV, or just as a whole?
I started it with as a whole, to be honest about it, um, because there are stories in there about business failures as well as personal failures, and I think I think, at least in the States, certainly our culture, a lot of times our work life and our personal life are intertwined, sometimes for good, sometimes for bad. And I think that if you are take a stab at writing a book like this, I think that there are aspects of it that can apply to both, business failures, certainly, but also the personal failures. I mean, the concepts are the same.
Hmm.
The pillars are the same, how you rebuild and how you sift through what's left. Because one of the core beliefs that I still believe, regardless of whether I wrote the book about it or not, is that there is always something left. There is always something left. I don't care if it's a skill, it's a relationship, it's something. I don't care how destroyed and how much damage there is in the relationship, in the business, in whatever. In you, there is something left to take from that failure and build again.
So, would you go as far as saying a failure is just a lesson
Yep,
that you that you
100%.
can yeah, that you can go from? Like you mentioned, like, reflection, a stage of failure, a trap where many people get stuck because it actually feels good to feel bad.
Yup.
Yeah, go with me on this. So, yeah, that, like, I do you mean that on that end of things, that once you get into a depressed state, you are stuck in that depressed state?
A lot of times you are. And if you are going through especially significant failures, again, the let's call it the loss of a business or the loss of a relationship,
Hmm.
those are both, um, certainly losses of those entities. Again, whether that's, a relationship or your business goes belly up and bankrupt for whatever reason. Um, you're going through a lot of emotions, right? And I'll talk about business for a second. Yeah, you're gonna have bankruptcies, and yeah, that it happens. But as a business owner, you are going to go through some pretty intense things, and you're going to get to a stage where you're just freaking numb,
Hmm.
right? You're just tired, and you're spent, and you're just done.
And you're
And
taking it out on everyone else.
you're taking it out on everyone else, and you're taking it out on yourself, right? But that numb part, and it's this part, right? This point where you just want to feel something, right? And feeling bad is feeling something.
Mhm.
So that's where a lot of people get stuck, because they'd rather feel bad than feel nothing.
Yeah. So, in your book, do you dive into how to pull yourself out of that hole and get with it again?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, it is a step-by-step process.
that you talk about skill gaps and character gaps when analyzing why we failed. You distinguish between a skill gap and a character gap. Um, Two areas that are a bit confusing of like trying to identify what's a skill and what's a character gap.
Yeah. So a skill gap is this. Math is not my strong suit.
No,
I
me
have
neither.
made no bones about that. And so, if you are looking at, again, your company goes bankrupt, and one of the areas that, you lost sight of and you didn't have vision of was the finances, because just, math's just not your thing. Well, okay, well, that's a skill gap, right? That's not understanding profit and loss statements. That's not understanding cash flow. That's not understanding the basic economics of how a business runs. Okay, well, that's a skill gap. That's something that you can learn or something that you can hire out. Gap is treating people poorly. It's, being dishonest. It's, not taking care of the people around you and pouring into them and making sure that they're successful. And so differentiating the failure points is important, because it allows you to see, okay, well, skill gap, here's where I can offset, and here's where not offset, but here's where I can either shore up myself by learning things or by hiring it, right? For my
Right.
next
Yes.
venture. Character gap, a little bit difficult, right? Because you can't hire out treating people better, right? But you can work on yourself. And that, quite frankly, I mean, is one of the most important skills in the world, is figuring out areas that you are lacking, myself included, and going, oh, well, I didn't do this right, or I didn't treat somebody right, or I had, a character flaw here that I need to work on. That, to me, is one of the best things you can do.
And then once again, it goes back into the reflection, but also the danger of reflection of don't treat yourself too bad.
no, but be honest about your shortcomings.
Yes, yeah. Now you say about bouncing back to bounce forward, and the description of post-traumatic growth.
I love
Okay,
this.
okay, yeah. Are these nearly Dr. Tim Albright coming out with the
No,
terminology, or is these things that you've read yourself? And yeah,
no. So I referenced the folks who did the study, and the idea is this: is there's a difference between bouncing back and bouncing forward. Bouncing back is bouncing back to zero, bouncing back to your baseline. Okay,
okay,
that's not what PTG is. PTG is saying, okay, again, it goes back to figuring out what went wrong.
mm-hmm.
And then, as you are learning and as you are shoring yourself up and as you are growing, you're going to grow beyond that baseline. You're going to bounce back beyond that baseline. We're not looking to get back to where we were. We're looking to grow, further than we were.
Mm-hmm. And it's a great way of, but it's also identifying, Tim, how far do you go back without beating yourself up and
Yeah.
going down that road of danger of reflection.
Yeah, absolutely.
So with that, with this in mind, and your book, now I've done a bit of googling, and I see that even that you have said many times and nearly on every episode of AV Nation and AV Week, don't follow me, but with this book comes a website that is in the making, I believe,
Yeah,
timalbright.com. Yes. So
absolutely.
so I guess a lot of people, especially in the AV industry, is this Tim Albright reinventing himself, and or is this just going to be a side layer of Tim Albright with his book and you know how to overcome failures?
It's an evolution.
Okay,
I have done emceeing for 10 plus years, and I absolutely enjoy it. And I have moderated panels for, good Lord, 15 now. And it is part of my job that I absolutely love. And one of the things that I've wanted to do for a long time is do public speaking. So not just emceeing and not just moderating, but actually, helping people with certain things that I have learned over the years. And so this is a first block, a first part of that foundation of going out and doing, public speaking and helping others. Again, in this instance, helping others who have failed. There will be a couple others out there, but this is the first step in that direction.
How nice does it feel, Tim, to do things that are non-AV related, that you can just go, right, I can push this across all industries, all lifespans, and for once I'm not talking about cables, mics, and pixels on cameras.
I like mics. Don't
I know
hate
you
on my
do.
mics.
Yeah, I know you do.
Um, I think it's a couple things, and it does come with age. But it is realizing that, at this point in my life, I have a certain life experience to get that I have lived. And at a certain point, hopefully everyone gets to the point where, like, you know what, I I'm not looking to die with these secrets or these things that I have learned. So why don't I just give them away to somebody that can use them? And I think that's kind of where I'm at in my life and in my career, where if I can help somebody, if I can help one person with both the struggles as well as the victories, then dude, I'm going to do it. And that's just where I'm at, whether that is in the industry or whether that's outside the industry. I see part of my job right now is to helping others, cross cross bridges and cross chasms.
Now, I was going to ask you what was your favorite area of writing the book, but I'm guessing like one area that I say gave a lot of satisfaction to him was the area of biology, routines, and mindset, your self care and operational requirements, your 90-minute morning routine. I spotted that when I was over in Amsterdam with you in
Yep.
October. Like your routine, like eventually when we found the press room in that maze that is the Rye in Amsterdam, like
God love that.
I could spot your routines and what you like to do in the morning before you actually go for your first interview. So
Yeah.
so talk to me like what was that an area of enjoyment? I'm guessing the whole writing of the book was an area of enjoyment, but
Yeah. So it was both enjoyable and, again, frightening.
mhm,
I have told a finite number of people, and I don't know how many, but it's not a lot, about my morning routine. And because, it's mine, right?
yeah, yeah.
It's sort of personal. Um, but what I have learned in talking to the folks that I have told about is that, between the research papers that I've read and studied, and the other people that I've talked to that have a similar routine as I do, is it is something that will set you up for success over the long period, right? Over a long time. And so, yeah, it was incredibly enjoyable to kind of lay that out there. But it also forced me to go, okay, why do I do this? Like, why do I do what I do? And
Do you know what happened
each
when I did that? I found out that
what?
I was neurodiverse.
And I might be, who knows? I don't
Yeah.
know. But each part and piece is kind of what makes me me and what makes my day my day. I said this in the book, and I will say this until whatever. Number one, learn what you can from others. Every single piece of my morning routine,
100%.
I think, um, has come from others. Maybe not the reading of the quotes from books. I think that's all me. But like the daily journaling, I have journaled for over 20 years. But the forcing myself and just adding it to the routine, came from a young woman by the name of Cameron, who wrote, The Author's Way. A dear friend of mine, Bren Walker, gave me the book, and that just added to that, right? The movement and the working out in the morning, the meditation came from two or three different areas. So yeah, each part and piece came from different folks, and just kind of added on to my own. I would encourage people to say, this is here's some pieces that I can do that fit me and fit my personality. Don't anybody take what I do and copy it. directly, right? Because
Yes, yeah.
I'm me,
And,
right?
and that's a very clear message that we want to give our listeners and viewers.
Yeah.
Like, you give concepts throughout this book, but this isn't a go-to guide of how to fix yourself. Is that a
No,
fair comment? Yeah.
not in as much as you should do what Tim does. No.
Yeah. So we're going to get the bracelets. Don't do what Tim does as an
There you
acronym.
go. Don't ever do what Tim does.
That's AV swag right now for
Yeah.
the next Infocom. But how do you feel, like, personally, with your 90-minute routine, if you don't get it done? If you have one of these shit storms of a day where you just have too much on your plate, or do you just go, no, I am always going to have this 90-minute routine?
I honestly do not remember the last time I didn't do it.
Wow. Okay.
Where to go? So and you and I have both traveled back and forth across the ponds.
Mm-hmm.
I have friends who, when they travel internationally, they try to keep to their home schedule as much as possible, meaning regardless of what time zone they're in, if they get up at 6 o'clock in the morning Eastern Standard Time, they're going to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning Eastern Standard Time, wherever in the world
Yes.
they are,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I think those people are crazy. So,
well, my body clock does it as soon as I go over to the States. You know,
yeah,
I'm used to, like, my son waking me up at 6 o'clock in the morning, so I'm awake at 2
yeah.
a.m. Yeah.
But at ISE, yeah, you and I both go to ISE. At IBC, those are the two international shows that I now go on an annual basis. So for 2 weeks out of the year, my body clock is Central European time, right? Which is 7 hours off of my own home time zone, right? Day I land in Barcelona, I have already done my morning routine on the plane. Like, I'm not kidding. With the exception of the working out, right? Can't work out on the plane, but I've done my meditation. I've done my reading of my quotes. I've done my journaling. At some point in that day, I will work out in some way, shape, or form. The very next day, I will be up at 4:30 Central Eastern Time, right? Because that is just the way my brain works. So I really don't remember the last time I didn't do it.
Right. And one thing I have to applaud you on as well. I sound like such a stalker on this episode of the podcast, listeners and viewers, but you also do grappling as well. And I'm like, I look at myself all the time, and, like, yes, I have a young 8-year-old autistic, soon to be 9-year-old autistic son that takes up a lot of my time, and then my 6-year-old daughter, and it's like, going back to your book, try not to make excuses in life, and properly reflect. You know, I've had neighbors who said, you need to do the couch to 5K, just, and I was like, haha, I'd die. You know, but for a 52-year-old doing grappling, you know, and what's the name of your club? I think it's a really quirky name.
It is called the Odd Fellows Grappling Club.
And how often do you do that?
Between 2 and 3 days a week.
Wow.
So yeah.
Fantastic. And I did see a photo that you put on social of, like, where you look absolutely exhausted, but also relieved that you're getting your next belt.
Yeah, that happened recently. I've been doing jiu-jitsu for about 2.5 years, and I recently achieved my blue belt, which was a whole process in and of itself. But jiu-jitsu is I have never been particularly, athletic. I played football, American football in high school, but other than that, I had never done any wrestling or anything like that. And this has forced me to think differently, right? It's a different part of my brain. It's a different strategy. And again, it's a good workout too.
And, well, you put me to shame, Tim, when, like, you know, when I noticed, like, back when I was going back to Orlando there last year, it's like, yeah, I've gone up a belt size, and I'm hoping to lose it eventually, but I need to actually just get out there and get fit again. So to wrap it up, what's the overarching message? I know, like it's not a big book, but what is the takeaway message that you really want to deliver in creating this book?
regardless of how much devastation and how ultimately how big you think your failure is, there is something left in you in the pile of ashes that we can take and you can take and start building again. That's the overarching message.
And you talk through the book on some personal experiences of that. You talk about what got you through these ends of things. Where can people pick up the book? I know timalbright.com is in the making, I guess.
By the time this comes out, they can get it there.
Okay.
But right now I would just point people to Amazon, regardless of which Amazon it is. But yeah, you can also get it at timalbright.com.
Now, we are AV folk. Are you going to make an audio book of this?
100%. So
Yes.
a little bit inside baseball. I wanted to make sure that the book was done, edited, in print, right? And now that it is, and now that it's out, I'm actually going in the studio the week before InfoComm and starting that process.
I know I have a bit of FOMO of missing out on InfoComm this year in Vegas, but I think being over at CES in January was enough for me, and one trip to Vegas is enough. I don't know how you do it 2 or 3 times a year.
This is my 4th time this year.
Oh God. God love you, and that's why you go back to your hotel room and journal.
Yes, sir. And why I get up at 4:30 in the morning.
And okay, with that 4:30 in the morning, what time do you go to bed at?
9 o'clock.
Nice. Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Between 8:30 and 9 o'clock. Yeah.
Yeah. But I
If
tell you,
if you text me after that, I will respond the next day. So terribly sorry.
phone off, and yeah, you know how to break away from the silence. Tim, it's been great talking to you. I can't believe you have done this and AV Week on your birthday. And getting the message across. Enjoy Vegas. I say that in a nice, polite way. But you have absolutely mastered the Irish exit, as we call it, of like just disappearing and shaking hands and going, I am not joining all these mad folk at all the crazy parties.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. And your excuse, I'm too old for that, is it?
I am too old for that. and I can use that excuse now.
Well, my thanks to Tim Albright for joining me to talk about his new book, Building on Ashes, available now. And by the time this podcast is out, he said that his new website, timalbright.com, will be unveiled just before InfoComm as well. And but you can buy the book on Amazon, and audio book of the book is going to come out in the not so distant future. That's all from me, Justin Dawson, for episode 148 of the All Things TechIE Podcast. Like, comment, share and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.